Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on our Mingle Mastermind, where we're talking about certified B corporations. I'm really excited to learn more about this topic. I've always been fascinated by B Corps and what they mean for a company and also just for the world. So I want to thank Shirn Movahed she's our resident fashion and business law attorney, and she suggested this topic. So we're super happy to have you again, Shirin, talking about this.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, I mean, with everything happening in this world, I think this is a great time to help businesses boost their visibility and remind them that doing good actually can, mean better for you and better for your customers. So why not, get certified and get recognized for the work that you're doing behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And then we're so grateful today to have Andrew Dale, who he started his company out as a C Corp, and it's a leather company. So we're excited to hear more about that. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
And then Joanna, you have started the business Piper and Sky, and you're actually working with Shirin on trying to get registered. So that's going to be a really great conversation too. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I'll let Beth go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this beautiful sunny Friday in New York. Happy to have you here. Thanks for agreeing to be with us today. If you have a chance, check out the products from Andrew and Joanna. Beautiful stuff. I already have 5 things I want to get from each of them. And they do good as well. So it's a win-win all around. So thank you for joining us. Just want to take a moment to introduce the other 2 panelists. Dee Rivera. Hi, Dee. How are you today?
Hi, Beth. Everybody could hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to go so 3D on you guys because my mic is not doing so well. I'm Dee Rivera from DCG Media Group. Our company focuses on virtual events. Now we're doing virtual events. We also focus on branding, marketing, live stream, and PR.
That's great. And we have Kat Schuller. Kat, I see you survived your World Ocean Day. How are you doing?
I almost.
Oh, we lost your audio.
Yeah.
Okay, there you are. Okay.
Drowned. It was good. It was really a good seminar, and I was asked to be an honorary advisor on the Sustainable Development Goals Impact Awards. So that's the next thing that we're working on, and we're going to take that out of the UN and make it a household word. So I'm big into sustainability. I teach it at LIM, and I also am a member of the Fair Trade Coalition. Besides having Regen Runway with High Tech Moda that we did at National Geographic, I'm super into this topic, and a lot of people ask me about B corporations and should they become them, and this is going to be a great seminar, and I'll have more insight as to what to tell them and who to tell them to go to, Shirin.
Cool. Well, let's get started. Shirin, let's just talk right off the bat. What is a B corporation? You hear people refer to it as B Corp, but it's actually put out by an organization called B Lab, and they are the ones who actually issue this. So explain us, just like the basics of what this is and how it works. Oops, we lost your audio.
There we go. Okay. So yeah, just there's a lot of talk about B Corp, Benefit Corp. They're actually 2 different things that do similar. So benefit corporations and certified B corporations, they're both leaders in the global movement of using your business as a force for good. They both meet the higher standards of accountability and transparency, and they both create the opportunities for businesses such as Andrew's and Joanna's to unlock the full potential and creativity of using their business for a higher purpose and helping solve, social and environmental issues. So But the B Corp, as you mentioned, it's actually a third-party certification run by the nonprofit called B Lab. And that basically looks at a company's verified performance on what's called the B Impact Assessment. And we can get into that later. Whereas a benefit corporation is actually a legal structure similar to an LLC or a corporation. So when you're registering your business, you can choose that form of entity as your legal structure. And currently there are 30 states that allow this entity structure when you're setting up your corporation. And New York is one of them. So that's a little different, but the B Corp certification, it actually is a governing body that goes through and evaluates various things that your company does, and how that meets the social, environmental, performances outside of just, being a corporation. So, but the benefit corporation is useful on its own, whether or not you end up doing a B Corp certification, because it is built in to the structure of the company that the directors are going to, look at all the shareholders, the stakeholders, right? Which is everyone, when making decisions. So, in and of itself, that structure does help you manage things, but when we discuss in more detail, the B Lab is actually great to help you manage everything as well.
Okay. Well, Andrew, so you actually started your business with the intention of becoming a B Corp. So can you tell us a little bit about your story, your journey and your story? Like you were working on Wall Street and then you decided to leave Wall Street and create a new company with the sole intention of making it a socially responsible company. So tell us about that journey.
I think a lot of us from the Wall Street world, at least in the more millennial generation, see a need for change in the world as relates to diversity, environmental performance, accountability. And so when I decided to leave and take this leap to start a fashion brand, it was never with the intention of sort of making low quality things overseas and selling them at a high markup. It was really to demonstrate that the very best product could be made with the very highest integrity, and it didn't have to break the bank. And it was almost an experiment to see whether that type of business was and is possible. And it's turned out to be so. And so when I started the company, right from the time I incorporated it as a C Corp, or the equivalent, just a regular standard corp in Canada, I incorporated the legal language into our articles and took the necessary actions with B Lab that would allow me, even before I launched the company, to be recognized as a certified B Corporation once I passed their rigorous assessment to allow me to do so. And David actually became the first leather bag brand in the entire world to become a certified B Corporation. So we're very, very proud of that.
That's amazing. So can you tell us, like, what was your experience? What I'm really curious to know about is how they actually certify you, because if they are a governing body, like what are the hoops you had to go through? What did you have to prove to them in order to become a certified B Corp?
The B Lab is, first of all, a very friendly and not sort of abrasive or confrontational organization. They want to call people into the movement. But what I really like about them is that the assessment is quite rigorous. So the main part of what you have to do is basically fill out a gigantic survey. And what I'd recommend doing as a sort of a shortcut for people who are considering this, there's a sample test you can do. But in addition to the sample test, what you could do is sort of go through all of the questions that exist in the test you'll take even before you fill them out. Record how many points are associated with each question, because you might find that you score 0 on some, but they might be worth like 0.1. And the goal is progress over time. And the goal is really to achieve a score of 80 on that assessment out of a possible, I think it's 240 points or something like that. So you're saying 80 out of 240, is that like a failing grade and you still get to be a B Corp? It's a really rigorous, thorough test that is then, based on your answers, actually audited and validated by B Lab based on how you think you scored documentation, even potential chats or correspondence with your suppliers to make sure that you meet the social and environmental criteria that you actually feel that you do as a company. So I like that it's not, unlike other sort of socially responsible markers on your brand, it's not just pay to play. You actually have to do stuff and pass, and they will give you criticism. And the other part of that is to incorporate into your actual legal documents a paragraph or a few sentences that they guide you along on to allow your board of directors, should you ever have one, or should you go public or get sold, down the road, to consider non-financial factors and stakeholders such as the environment, your customers, your supply chain in their decision making. Because coming from the private equity world and the Wall Street world, I know that really the view of the board at that time, even 5 or 7 years ago, and it's changing, but it's still very much the case. The role of the board is really to guide management to maximize the financial value of the company, and that financial value might not always be long term. There's ways to sort of pump up profits in the short term, or disregard environmental laws to lower costs so that you can sell the company at a higher price now. And owners will feel the harm of that later, or the customers or the supply chain. B Corp aims to sort of prevent that, to allow the board basically not to get sued if they consider environmental and social factors in their decision making. So it effectively protects the board and allows them to have a greatly expanded worldview. And that's the other important part, in addition to paying a small fee every year.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And so how long did it take you to go through that process? Once you took the test and then they had to review everything, how long did that take?
Yeah, so there's a two-step process if you would like to pursue a two-step process. You can get a B Corp pending certification, which is basically saying we think we passed, like based on our own scoring, we passed, we've submitted it. We're sort of an early stage company, and we haven't really even launched yet. So it's hard to prove in absolute terms, but we think we're going to get there, and they'll give you sort of a tentative certification. And even the logo has like a pending sort of mark on it. But then to actually pass the certification as a launched company, took us basically, we had a dedicated person on it, and it was a couple of months of work, really, not just to fill out the survey, but to make sure that we had the appropriate policies, supply chain documentation, and then the actual audit alongside B Lab to make sure that we were passing. So I'd be prepared if companies are interested, especially in this day and age, given what we're experiencing in the world, the desire for increased diversity, the desire for an increased or more expanded worldview with regard to how companies behave. This is I'd say a serious thing, a fun thing, and an exciting thing, but a thing to take seriously, that you should give yourself, even as a very small company, at least a couple of months to really pursue. And if you're larger, you should allow up to a year, I'd say, to really get that done.
Wow, that's amazing. So Joanna, you are the founder of a fashion brand called Piper and Sky. So, and you're just now starting your journey. You're working with Shirin to get your B certification. So why don't you tell us about your company and why you wanted to get the B Corp?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to Andrew because he's very humble.
Okay.
I think he deserves a lot of credit because he built his brand around the knowledge of B Corp before he even, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I think you already had B Corp in mind when you were structuring your business. So you built it in every layer and every fiber. He's very humble, but I would like you to speak to that if you don't mind.
Sure. And thanks for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, my journey was a bit different. I had this sort of awakening in the Wall Street world, right? And I was like, just to be honest, making all this money, getting to a senior level at a young age and saying like, this isn't it for me. People are saying this is it, but this is not it. So I wanted to do something that embedded my personal values and the sort of direction I want to push the world in from the very beginning. So my understanding of like, how do you even make leather sustainable? There's this movement towards vegan leather, but it's really just like plastic, and it seems to be this greenwashy thing, but leather itself is traditionally really toxic. So how do I balance all of those needs right from the get-go? And I had to construct a supply chain over many, many months, sleeping in rural villages and doing, studies alongside, academic people to really understand how to embed this ethos from the very beginning. So it is possible to do it later on. I'd say one of the messages that I would share is the earlier the better, because it's hard to plug in sustainability into a company at like a later date. You look at H&M's like Conscious Line, it maybe makes up 1 or 2% of their revenue. And it's great that a global powerhouse is moving in that direction. But if they wanted to be B Corp certified, just based on the proportion of their production that's actually sustainable, it's just not. And so the earlier you can do this, the better, because then you are not plugging it in at a later date, and you avoid using all of your energy to do something that might not have a big impact on your overall company if it's already constructed in a certain way that doesn't allow you to make the changes you need to make to become certified. That's what I'll share on that topic.
Okay. Joanna.
Hi. So Andrew and I have worked together. We're both based out of Toronto, and handbag companies. So he's been a great colleague of mine. But it's fascinating for me as a brand owner. So I have implemented some of the B Corp process, I would say a couple years after launch. And so I wasn't at the stage where Andrew was, where I built it in from the beginning. But from my experience personally, I was conscious of wanting to do things responsibly. So I'm comfortable using the word responsible luxury, very comfortable with that. And I have been using that for a long time, that terminology. And so I align sustainability very closely with, closely tied to B Corp. And so I'm not quite comfortable at this point in the stage in the game to claim that I'm a sustainable brand. And I actually don't even necessarily believe that that's a goal of mine anymore. I don't know if that of achieving the status of being a sustainable brand is even something that I esteem to. I think it's more important to me that every layer of my business is done ethically, responsibly, socially, reduction of waste. So that's what B Corp is to me. It's pulling apart all the layers of the onion of my business and making sure that everything is being done with awareness and with a conscious mind to doing less harm and more good for the people and planet all around us. And so that's kind of what it means to me. So I would say that, and I do love, so B Corp uses the phrase using business as a force for good, but I would say that I also see it in the reverse way for myself, is that doing good, quote unquote, also propels your business forward. So I've been noticing that the initiatives that we take and, the focus that we put on, finding out if our supply chain, what they're doing with their hazardous waste, and the team that I work with, people are engaged in that. They like to get their hands dirty on that kind of stuff. So they love to, communicate with our supply chain and find out, what are you guys doing with your hazardous waste? So it goes both ways, I find. So you do good with your business, and your business does good, for the world and the planet and people. So I find that it's just an all around, it's a win-win. So I am just about to apply for B Corp certification. And so I thought I might speak to a little bit to that in case there's people wondering about the application process. So it, like Andrew said, it is a few months, and I'm a small company. So it is an arduous process, but it really is a learning process. So for me, I wasn't in a rush to, do the assessment and then apply right away or quickly, because I enjoy the process of going through section by section. And there are certain sections where I'm confident, and I know that we are completely, I'm sure that we are going to get most points out of, say, 2 out of the 5 categories. So for me, it's ethical and social efforts and initiatives. But where I lack the skills in is the environmental category. So at first I looked at the categories, and I could identify the ones that I know I'm strong in, and I knew the ones that I'm not. So we quickly ticked off the boxes and got the scores on our assessment right away. And then we can go back later to those and, you know, get even more scores by doing more efforts and making more thorough, I guess, deep dives into some of those topics. But, you know, when I looked at the environmental section, I have never asked my supply chain, what do you do with your hazardous waste? What is your carbon footprint? You know, what are the chemicals that you use in your facility? So many questions in that environmental thing that I had never really thought to ask, because in my mind, if I have them sign a document that you're abiding by the state or the laws of the country, that's enough. In actual fact, now I'm realizing it's not enough. So you need to do your own homework on that. So this is one number of things. B Corp has forced me and led me down the path of understanding my supply chain more, understanding how their operations work, understanding the manufacturing facilities and what goes into it and what comes out of it. And so I have learned so much, and I'm really happy. I will say that it's taken this long, and I'm in no rush to apply. Of course, I really am excited to have that B Corp, you know, stamp, but it won't define my brand. It won't define me. But I know that looking back, it will have taught me so many things about how to be a business person, how to be a citizen of this world and on this planet, and how to do more good than bad. So
Wonderful. It sounds like it's a great educational process for all of us as human beings, in addition to our businesses. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how is that process going when you've already got your supply chain set up? And so now you need to go back to them and talk to them about these standards. How do you start that conversation with them, and what has been the response?
Yeah. So there's a spectrum, I would say, of people that are on the ball already, and they have all the answers and all the documentation for me. They just say, "Here you go, Joe. Here it is."
Okay, good.
Great, but that's not always the case. So then the other end of the spectrum is, I would say, a manufacturer. He does our one-offs, and he works by himself in a small factory, and he doesn't even and he doesn't speak, like, English is not his first language. And so it's educating him on what the questions are. And then so this is our approach. We want to establish a baseline. So if he has never monitored what he does with his hazardous waste, whether it's glues that he uses in his manufacturing facility, there are hazardous wastes that are used by him. So he's never probably put thought to that. And so we try to educate and work with him, and then we try to establish a baseline. So that's what we're doing right now, is establishing a baseline with a certain either supplier or manufacturer, so that a year from now, we can go back and revisit that and see if there's been an improvement. And also we sort of fill the role of, I guess, advisors to him as far as his environmental outputs and his carbon footprint. And I will say that the first conversation that I had with him, I said, I know that this might be, a lot of work for you, but don't worry. I said, I'm here to help you every step of the way, but there's certain things that I'm really passionate about that mean a lot to me. And I said, I kind of, broke down some of the items with him, and he could not have been more excited about it. And he was thrilled about the opportunity to do better in his facility. So he just said, whatever you need, just tell me, Joe, and I want to learn more. I want to do better. So it's been a really enjoyable, awesome process.
Wow. That's just so thrilling to hear that people are, because I feel like the people in the supply chain must be under so much pressure with the constant, requests and dealing with problems. So the fact that he's willing to take the time to really rethink how his business works. So that means that what you're doing with the B Corp is you're not using suppliers that already have this figured out. You're actually helping more companies get on board. So I really commend you for taking the time to do that.
Thank you. Yeah. And it is work, but it's work that is worth it, because now we're rethinking our packaging, for example. So our packaging, we just had, a supplier that we found from wherever. And it's, at the time, a couple of years ago, it wasn't such a top of mind priority for us. And so now we're rethinking who our supplier is for our packaging. And there are so many amazing packaging companies out there that are sustainable and ethical, and actually that exist within North America. And I've made a very conscious decision to as much as possible and whenever possible, have my supply chain and my manufacturing chain within North America so that I can easily hop on a flight and be there within a half a day and meet who I consider to be family now. So everyone that I work with, to me, they're family, and that's how I planned it, and that's how I wanted it, and couldn't be happier about that. But it does mean, for example, the packaging. So now it's been a fun, enjoyable process because we get to meet these amazing companies that have started and built their companies based on the premise that they want to use recycled products or papers and materials, and it's interesting to me because seeing how another company, another brand that makes a different product has built it and what their journey is like and has been like. It's interesting because I'm still learning from them. And I think it's just people are more collaborative these days, especially in my opinion, since the COVID pandemic, and seeing how the fashion industry has come together and partnered and collaborated together. I think that we're going to see going forward in the future a lot more partnerships and collaborations and people sharing information and knowledge with each other than we ever saw before.
Yeah, that's a COVID silver lining that we're all really happy to see. Kat's got a question.
Yeah, I was just so intently enraptured about this topic. And number 17 is the partnership goal for the sustainable development. So you're right on the mark with that, Joe. How do you educate the consumer about the value of what a B Corp means? It is, I mean, everybody knows the good housekeeping seal of approval. That's kind of like a given. If you want to tell them, you educate the customer about the B Corp and the Benefits Corporation edicts and the rigors you had to go through, and is that part of the transparency in the marketing of your products?
Sure. I think, did we lose Andrew here? Because he might have something.
I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay. So I thought you might have some thoughts on that, Andrew, because he's already in the thick of it. So maybe I'll let you go here.
It's interesting because when we look at the top factors that make our customers buy, sustainability actually isn't in the top 3. But sustainability connotes something to them about the honesty and the transparency of the company when they look through our supply chain and can see pictures of the factories, understand that the business is inspired by my grandfather's 50-year journey as a leather worker, that notion of hand craftsmanship. It's interesting how sustainability can sometimes, if done properly, actually put a quality halo on your company, which is what our customers really care about. Our customers care about, our customer tends to be someone who's bought, a Tumi bag or even like a Louis Vuitton bag before, and they're sort of tired of not just mass branding, but a lack of connection to the brands that they're spending a lot of money on. And they're looking for something classic and beautiful, but that is truly unique and long lasting, and they can prove to themselves it's long lasting, not just by a brand stamp, but by understanding the supply chain. So if you view sustainability as a more encompassing form of not just environmental impact, which is crucial, which is our number one priority, but also transparency and accountability, that is not just something we market to customers. Like, that is our company. That's what differentiates us.
It's in the DNA.
It's we would not exist without it, put it that way.
For sure. So a couple of thoughts I had on the question there, Melissa, would be that for people that are considering the application process for B Corp, I would say that it may seem like a daunting task, but it is a bit of a daunting task for me. It has been, especially in the beginning. But the more I went through the process, and the more I realized how much I was learning throughout it, and learning about my brand and about myself, even as a person, is worth it. It's well worth it. And if someone applies for it, and say they don't get that 80 points out of 200, I'm pretty sure that you can do it as many times as you want. You can keep reapplying, as far as I know. But I would say, from my understanding, once you get certified with the B Corp world, you are aligned with a network of people, whether no matter what industry they're in. So they could be in, hydroelectricity or oil and gas, and I'm in fashion. It doesn't matter, but it's a community of people that have the same values, personally and for their businesses, and they're all willing to help one another and share and collaborate, which is another huge part of the UN goals. So that is something for me that's valuable. So and also too, I like to learn what are the oil and gas companies up to these days for doing, good for the world and the environment and the planet. So it's a learning experience for me. It's a networking experience. And I also know that once you're sort of in the club, the B Corp club, you have a lifetime of guidance and of being challenged. You don't just sit and rest on your laurels. You have to recertify every 3 years, and you have to show and prove that you're making improvements. So if you were lacking when you were first certified in the environmental category, like I will be, I would like to show 3 years from now that I've improved drastically, I guess, on that category. And I'll be proud of showing and displaying the work that I've done in that category to be better. So to me, there's so many benefits.
Awesome.
So you guys went down the B Corp path where you apply for this yourself, but the other side of it is the benefits corporation, which is what Shirin has to help with as an attorney. So tell us about that process, Shirin, and why you might need to do both, or can you just do one or the other?
Well, first of all, one of the limitations of a benefit corporation is it's, in North America, at least there's only 30 states that are allowing you to register as a benefit corporation. New York is one of them. Delaware, actually, you're not even, you can only set up for a benefit corporation if, a B Corp status if you have a benefit corporation registration. So they do require a registration as a benefit corporation. But similar to a B Corp, just looking at the comparisons, the accountability, as Andrew mentioned, yes, the directors are required to consider the impact on all the stakeholders when they're making any decisions. So it avoids any sort of, loss of goals and missions, and profits is not the number one thing that they need to just think about. Transparency is the same as a B Lab. They obviously must publish public reports that shows their environmental and social impact and their performance. And that's where, registering with the B Lab helps confirm that transparency. Otherwise, a benefit corporation that doesn't have a B Lab certification will have to create that report on their own to show that transparency. The performance aspect of a benefit corporation is self-reported, whereas with the certified B Lab, the performance is based on that B Lab impact assessment. So it's a little bit different in terms of the third-party validation versus self-validation. And then the cost. So that's one of the things that I've noticed some of my clients that are having issues with is the cost. Whereas, getting registered as a benefit corporation, doing the state filings, is, it ranges anywhere between $70 to $200 depending on the state. So it's just a simple filing and then you get the benefit registration. Whereas a B Lab certification, you have to go through that rigorous assessment, and then your fees are anywhere from $500,000 to $50,000 a year. It's all based on revenues, of course. So obviously, the more money you make, the more money, relative that you have to give into it. And it sort of goes by the same theme of you know, the social awareness. So if you're making more money, just think of it like, you know, when you're sitting at a church or something, right? If you've got more to give, you put more in the till. And it's just helping everyone else along in that chain. And as Joanna mentioned, help the education part of it, you know, help with the resource part of it. So yes, it may be. But another good thing to think about with the B Lab certification is right now they are offering 50% off registration for minority businesses and women-owned businesses. Wow. So that's, again, that's something to take advantage of right now as they're, you know, giving out this generous discount for certification. And again, you know, they're very similar. You know, it's easier to set up a benefit corporation, of course, if your state allows that, and of course cheaper, but to maintain the constant transparency and accountability, it helps to have a third-party certification like B Lab that aligns all of your, you know, it provides you with your performance. It gives you your test scores, so you know exactly what you're working with. And as Joe mentioned, it keeps you accountable and constantly allows you to keep track of your performance and keep doing better. You know, whereas if you're just set up your benefit corporation, you're not really sure where and how to guide your company along. You know, there's not a lot of resources. And the benefits of the benefit corporation, as Andrew and Joe mentioned, it's building those relationships with other businesses and their leaders and creating this great network of clients, of vendors, of suppliers, of creating this, you know, an amazing social, bubble that's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger as these businesses continue to educate and empower those that they're working with in the supply chain. And of course, attracting the talent, right? That's another thing. I mean, by having this sort of organization, you're also attracting the types of employees that you want that align with your mission. And also, you know, you're not only just doing great for your social causes and your environmental causes, you're also doing good for your own employees, right? You've got great benefits, you're supporting your employees. So it's just all around an amazing, environment to be working with a company that has a benefit corporation status or a B Lab certification. And again, building that legal foundation into your company so that, you know, when you're making decisions, you're making it with that goal in mind, that it's how does it impact everyone that I'm working with, and how does it impact the customers, the supply chain. And when you read the story of David and read the story of Runa Ray, as we mentioned last week in our conversation, knowing that connection to the business and knowing how much care they put into their products and the people that are working with them, that connection is what's going to take, let them think, okay, I don't need to spend money on this, whatever brand when I know this brand and it feels good to spend my money with this brand. And that's how we're going to, continue to make a difference in this world, is just, feeling connected, knowing that we're also responsible consumers. And, we have a choice as to where we put our money. And when we put our money towards buying a Piper and Sky bag or a David bag, we know that it's not only an amazing quality bag, but we're doing great by doing that. We're doing a service as well. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I think that we had a question in the chat about the suppliers. Does B Lab provide a list of approved suppliers, or how do you actually go out and find these people in the supply chain that will make the process easier for you to get certification?
I'll let that go to Andrew for now.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Shirin's point for 1 second about feeling good by buying a Piper and Sky or a David. I would go even further and say, Shirin said, not only are you not getting a high quality bag, but you get to sort of feel good. I would say our quality exists because of the partnerships we have with our sustainable and ethical supply chain. I find that when I align myself with people who care about the world, it's just a default that they care about quality. I'm aligning myself with suppliers that only care about profit, is quality to me really on the forefront of their mind. So because of our supply chain, we've actually been able to promote and stay at I'll call it ridiculously high level of quality that leads to, like, just in raw numbers, industry low return rates. Like, our return rates are 1 to 2%, when typically in e-commerce, like, they could be up to 20%, or higher, right? For high-end goods and things like that. So the aligning yourself with those people is sort of the essence, the core. And so the question is, how do you find them? One is really careful internet research. Our leather tannery it's a family in rural Germany that's been around since 1824. They used to be like Adidas's go-to supplier in the 70s for some of their classic 3 stripes designs. They've worked with Coach and a lot of other leading brands. All those brands went to Asia, and here's this family that has now a 4th generation family CEO who went and did an MBA in the States on, sustainability, and said, I need to transform the leather industry, and allowed camera people and all sorts of industry critics to walk through his tannery, and for him to prove to them that he's actually, like, changed the game in leather. And he was just sitting there in rural Germany waiting for a shot to make a difference in bags, because they've been known for footwear. And so after like 4 months of trying to get in touch, these suppliers often don't have websites. Offering to fly there to actually meet with them, post-COVID, of course, to sleep in their village, to get to know the local people, to actually spend your own money in a way that doesn't just connote you're into some sort of basic transaction, but that you're interested in a long-term relationship, is the way to get in the door with these. The same with our factory in Montreal, where we manufacture. Like, they don't work with startups. Like, they make Celine Dion's, $3,000 bags. But it's something about the story and the values and the desire for personal relationships and doing good in the world that is hard for people to turn away. I think especially in this day and age, where more and more of us are saying, what is the role of business on the world? And I would say it's incumbent on the entire supply chain, the company, the manufacturers and the customers, to demand that companies do more in this realm. And you will find that suppliers are increasingly receptive, because you will help them tell their stories too, if they're on that path of doing good for the world. So internet research, digging around, trade shows, and then just trying to form the relationships by going to meet them and showing that you're interested in something long-term and not just short-term.
Yeah, the relationship building, I believe, and I've seen, is key, especially for some of these 3rd and 4th generation artisans, in Italy, or even in North York and Toronto. It's, a family business, and they really want to know you. They want to know where you come from, what's your family like, what are your values. And I think it's been forgotten for the past number of years. And I think my sense is that the world is coming back to a place where we do value each other, and we want to share the same values, and we want to work together in alignment for profit, but also for doing good for each other, one another, for ourselves, and for the world. And so I do see that there is a huge shift coming for the fashion industry. This is mine and Andrew's experience, of course, coming from that sector. But I do see that there is a lot more promise for people to come back to what really matters. It's values, and it's relationships and collaboration. So it's really cool. The one thing I also wanted to mention was that sometimes I have found in my journey is that some of these old school, I'll call them old school, manufacturers and artisans, they don't even know how ethical and sustainable that they are until you go in there and you ask them some questions, and then they've actually got it all the boxes are checked. They just didn't know that they were doing so well. And
Right.
so that's a neat moment when you can say, wow, like, you've been doing this all along and you didn't even know. So, and it's a proud moment for them, and it's just it's a celebration, that you've been doing good work, good quality work, and you've been doing it the right way. It's really a nice time. So,
does the trend toward businesses being interested in doing the B Corp, is this something that's like more popular in North America, or Shirin, do you know if this is something that's happening in other countries as well?
Well, this B Lab certification is in more than 50 countries right now.
Okay.
So it is international. Right now, there's 2,500 that are certified, and it ranges everywhere from small businesses to public companies. So obviously, the majority are small businesses. As Andrew mentioned, it's a lot easier to get this going early on in the stages of your company to ingrain that. So as you're moving, forward and growing, it helps just to, put it into the veins. But companies such as, Patagonia, they're a benefit corporation. Procter and Gamble, they're a public company. They're a benefit corporation. So there are major companies that have registered and have become certified, and they're in North America, Latin America, Australia, New Zealand, East Africa, and United Kingdom. So obviously, this is certainly expanding all over the world very quickly.
Right. And we have a question from Gloria, one of our members who is an apparel designer, and she's curious about, how long did it take for your company to start making a profit, and also, like, especially Joanna, since you started off, just, you're transitioning toward this, like, what's the thought process behind, like, how are you going to balance the profitability? Do you see any impact on profit by going down this path?
Sure. So as much as we're just about to broach the time of application for B Corp certification, this is something that I will say from day one, when I went to New York from Toronto, and I had a list of maybe 7 or 10 manufacturers in New York to visit. And so I went through all of them. It was a grueling few days. And so at the end of it, I sat down with my team, at the time, friends and family was my team at the time. And I just said, I just feel like it's really important to me. And at the time, I didn't know the word sustainability. I didn't know that there was an actual real thing that I was part of at the time. And so I just, I came to realize that what I was calling responsibility was actually something that was really important. So not only for myself as a person, but so I will say that it was always built into the fibers of Piper and Sky. I just didn't know what to call it. And so once I heard about B Corp and that it was something that I could actually assimilate to and associate with, there was something that I could esteem to achieve that would help me understand more clearly myself about what I've always wanted, so there's like an organization of people and a network of people that want the same things, and I just didn't know it existed, and I didn't know how to formulate that in my own brand. So that for me is my journey. I was going to say that profitability wise, I have an amazing mentor, and I have to give him a shout out here, Lior Rothschild of CBSR, from Canadian Business for Social Responsibility, and I've worked very closely with him for I would say going on 2 years now. But so we have been working on exactly this topic, and at one point I said to him, dear mentor, is there any way that we can actually put a number to, and can we qualify the amount of time that I, as a brand owner, company, and business owner, am putting into sustainability and social responsibility? How do I quantify that with numbers if I ever wanted to, have my business valuated? How do I actually show that on paper for an accountant or a numbers guy, an actuary or something? And so we sat and thought about that a little bit, and it's taken quite a while. And he and I have he more so than I, but spent some time really thinking about that. How do we put a value to these efforts that are it's hard because it's not something that comes with numbers. Like if I spend 4 out of 8 hours or whatever hours in a day or in a week, what value do you put on that amount of time, right? So if there's someone that wants to invest in my business and they don't necessarily appreciate the benefit of the efforts that and the time that I'm putting into sustainability and social responsibility, then you know, it needs to show on the spreadsheet basically. So that is something that we have been struggling with trying to identify. So I don't know if that helps answer the question.
Well, that there's no easy answer is the answer to the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think Andrew brought up the point that his company, you know, you believe that part of your success is because you have invested all of this time. And even though people aren't just buying your bags because they're interested in sustainability, knowing your story and knowing the quality you're putting into the bags is helping drive sales.
David's core purpose is to provide joyful products that enhance people's lives. It doesn't have to be about bags. In fact, when I started the company, I landed on bags later. Part of joy to me is a feeling of like lightheartedness or freedom when I know that the bag I'm carrying doesn't carry bad karma, toxic chemicals, the zipper isn't gonna break when I'm on an important business trip. Like, to me, there's a joy in freedom. And so like for us, so we've reached profitability. We've been in market for 2 to 2.5 years. So like a nice, I guess, time to reach profit. We keep it really, really lean. But I will say it is objectively a higher cost way of doing business. There's no two ways about it. But when I flip that on its head and say, is it really a higher cost way of doing business, or is the lower cost way of doing business and pricing products that we've become used to actually not the real price of the product, given the amount of harm embedded that is not taken into account by the companies? And I think we have to get used to, as consumers, knowing that the $20 or $30 pair of jeans or the $200 luxury bag is not actually sustainable financially, environmentally, or socially. If toxic effluent is being dumped into the river, if the workers are being abused. I mean, I've seen cost sheets through sources in the industry. For those who aren't yet in manufacturing, a cost sheet is like a line-by-line breakdown of every single thing in your product, including labor. And I've seen cost sheets for leading leather bag manufacturers. And the first time I saw one, I actually cried. Like, no joke, just seeing how little workers in Asia were being paid for this like highly complex stitching of toxic materials. And so you can say it's a higher cost way of doing business, but is it actually the appropriate cost of doing business? And the frame of reference is actually too low. And until the consumer wraps their head around it, I think we're going to be in this scenario where the consumer says, oh, it's sustainable, I love that, but do I want to pay more? In the end, frankly, I think it's Gloria whose question this was. It's a great question. You probably end up eating a little bit of margin is the short answer, until enough companies get on board that the costs of those materials actually fall, and there's enough volume in sustainable materials that more people want to do it. And then so you're almost being a martyr is an extreme word, but a little bit of an early hero for like taking that plunge when it's actually costing you the money at quality around your company. You still can, as I've proven, create a profitable enterprise. But I would also say, if you're just in it for profit, I would say, is that the right frame to be entering the business world in this day and age? And like, shouldn't we all be thinking of deeper missions for our lives and our careers, ideally, as we sort of pursue this next phase of society, given where we're at? I know it's a privilege to be able to say that. Some people are just scrapping for food and they're working at minimum wage. But if you can, is it just about the money, or can you balance purpose and profit? And David has proven that you actually can.
That's beautiful.
Also, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Joanna.
I was just going to say, I mean, I see a future where the demand for sustainably made and produced products is going to go without saying. And so it's going to be assumed at a certain point in time going forward that everything that is produced and made in the modern world has an element of conscious and intentional production. And so the demand will be high, and sure, the price, but everything I think will start to sort of level off. And it's kind of like when you go to the grocery store, you can buy organic or not buy organic. Of course, everyone knows organic produce, costs more. And so people have started to learn, the ones that it justifies spending more on, because like the berries, they don't have that peel that comes off if there's chemicals, and it's a whole big thing. But people are really curious about it, interested in it, want to buy more organic, and are educating themselves about what it means to buy something that is sustainable. So why is this t-shirt sustainable, and why is everyone talking about sustainability right now? And so it's really a neat thing to see that, and how people define sustainability, because you can easily attach that word to anything really, and some people just don't even question it. If it says sustainable, then it's probably a good thing, right? But where's the validation for that? So that's where I think B Corp comes in, is that if you have built the sustainability and social and ethical responsibilities into the fibers of your brand, then you can actually say that I've done my due diligence on every piece of my business and in every way that I possibly can, so that if anyone has any questions about it, you have a lot of support for your journey, and also this huge network of people that have gotten to know you and support you and work with you. So it's a win.
That's wonderful. Dee's got a question.
Yeah, I love what you both shared. I think it's important, for people, part of the purpose and profit is to help people understand and educate them on what went behind making this product, right? I shared this last week. And storytelling and the messaging of what it took to make this brand is what's going to give the incentive and encourage people to buy the actual product. And I think that's key. So my question to you both is, do you add anything inside your product, like a message or like a little card saying this is how this bag was made, in order to educate the consumer? And two, is the goal for a B Corp to reach those 200 points? Like, is that the goal, or is that just, I'm just curious.
Do you want to start, Andrew?
Sure. Dee, we actually go one step further by disclosing on our website, including our product pages. So not just in some, faraway backstory page. Every single supplier that goes into the bag. So when they're reading the product description, they don't just see that, the bag attaches to your luggage and is expandable and, has a 15-inch laptop storage and a padded shoulder strap. Like, they're actually seeing the names of the suppliers who made the bag. We have this tagline, "Our bag is our bond," that the bag represents a way of doing business and our feelings about society that bonds us to the customer and bonds them to our mission, and in sort of a virtuous circle representing something greater about the world. And so again, that's our DNA. It doesn't even require an insert, because they wouldn't even be aware of our company if those values didn't exist. In terms of your question on the goal, is the goal to get to 200? I would say, yeah, the goal is to, even Patagonia and the leading B Corps in the world, I think are probably in the 160s or something like that. For a leather bag brand to be at 86, when the industry average, I think, is in the mid 50s, is already an extraordinary accomplishment. But I'm certainly not resting. Like, there's certain things we fell down on in our first assessment around documenting certain policies, especially around diversity, a very topical thing right now. I forget what else we sort of got knocked down on the test. A couple of things come to mind, but yeah, like, will we ever get to 200? Probably not. But am I going to try every day to continue to get towards that? Yeah, and maybe one day we will. But the goal really is to demonstrate improvement. And so the B Corp certification proves that you've met a certain threshold but it's part of the ethos of I'd say all of the companies to believe in continuous improvement with regard to enviro-social issues.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because you guys are both bag manufacturers. You have bag companies, obviously apparel companies. I'm sure that like in the jewelry industry, getting B Corp would be really big. But Shirin, what about companies like I know Dee's got a client that Salud that has vitamins and tea, and then also Rose Hall. I saw she's got Tessie's tea, and that's all organic. Can those types of companies become B Corps or benefit corporations?
Absolutely. There's no limitation to the types of products or services that can register. It's a matter of, how do you incorporate that, and how easy is it for you to, change your supply chain or be transparent with yourself and your supply chain and your customers about your products and services. So it's not a matter of what you do or what you sell. It's a matter of how can you incorporate this into your business. So it's absolutely for everyone.
Okay. Well, we're an online business, so we don't really have suppliers. So how would we do that?
You have a team, right? And so your diversity and your team members, and also how you treat your
governance structure. The sort of cut you off, Shirin, but I just want to say the assessment actually varies depending on both your company size and your industry. So for us as a small fashion brand, the most important question was whether we proved to have any sort of groundbreaking method of reducing toxicity in a key step of our manufacturing. So for us, that's leather. Our leather uses 80% less water and 75% less energy than other leathers, using the technology that we've developed or work with in Germany. So we were able to prove that a key manufacturing step, and that was like the biggest question, huge amount of points for us. But for a services company, it might be around, employee treatment, governance structure, benefits, how you, promote your message, your office building, the materials you use in any sort of promotional, items. So there's all sorts of things that will be applicable to you and won't be applicable to you depending on your industry. And every industry has a different scoring methodology by B Lab. They work very, very hard on that.
Okay, that's fascinating. Well, it's been a wonderful discussion this past hour, and I really want to thank everybody. Joanna and Andrew, you guys were just an amazing amount of inspiration and information. So we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and of course, Shirin is available for any types of consultations on B Corp, benefits corporations, but also just setting up your company and traditional corporations and intellectual property and all of those issues that we talk about all the time on.
And just to add, as a Fashion Mingle member, you do get a free half-an-hour consultation. So that's something that I always
that's important.
Right? So yeah, and then there's also discount on fees. We really do, try to empower, and through these webinars, we're educating, our community. But I also want them to know that moving forward, we're here to help them in any which way, and that's what I'm trying to do my part in as well.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. Have such a great weekend. I know we're getting a little bit out there with a little bit more open in New York City and other parts of the world. So stay safe out there, but I hope you have some fun this weekend.